What's going on, Pierre? How are you?
Nick and Jay, great to visit with you. Everything's good, thank you. I'm a little bit more healthy than maybe Austin Matthews is, but I'm doing fine, thank you.
Yeah, tough news. Curious to get your reaction on that, and sort of what you've seen in Austin Matthews' game. Has there been a telltale sign that something could be up?
Well, he's not shooting the puck as well, and I think Jay knows that's one of his calling cards. So that's one of the things that kind of stands out. I don't think he's been as good deep in his own zone as he usually has been. So maybe he's a little bit shy physically because of that injury. He's trying to protect something. But the truth of the matter is, the most frustrating thing if you're a Leaf fan right now, Nick and Jay, is 4 for 40 on the power play is no good. They brought in Mark Savard to make the power play better. They have more than enough ammunition to have an elite power play. That power play is at 10% right now. I do a thing, and I learned this from Scotty Bowman a long time ago. It's called a special teams quotient. You have the power play percentage and the penalty kill percentage. If you're an elite team in the league that's got a chance to compete for the Stanley Cup, you're at 105 or better. Right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs are at 94.3. Think about that for a second. That's not even close. I'll show you the top teams in the league. The Winnipeg Jets are at 120.1, and the New York Rangers are at 120.4. Okay? So people can talk about all this other stuff. I'm telling you right now, if your special teams equation isn't 105 or better, you're not even in the discussion as an elite team in the league.
Yeah, there's no question. It's a massive part of the game right now, and we watch day in and day out, and they come up short and they falter, and whether they can't get an entry or a setup or finish or get any kind of real chances going. What would you do if you're at the helm to try to break this thing loose? Is there real interior issues, or is it just a matter of just playing through this slump?
I think, Jay, one of the most important things in the NHL now is to have a power play where the puck goes through one person. It starts with one person. So if you go look at all those elite power plays in Washington when they had Ovechkin and Backstrom and Oshie and John Carlson and Tommy Wilson, they had the puck always go through Nicky Backstrom. I can tell you, with our elite power plays when I was coaching in Pittsburgh, when we had Lemieux and Mullen and Francis and Yager and Stevens and Murphy, like a murderer's row of players, everything started and went through Larry Murphy's stick. Everything did. Even though we had Lemieux, we had all. It starts with one person settling. I don't know who that guy is in Toronto right now. I don't know who it is, and whether it's Nylander, whether it's Johnny T, whether it's Austin, whether it's Mitchell, I don't know who it is, but they got to find who that person is pretty quick, I think.
Pierre, it's funny you say that because I had a former Washington Capital who won the Cup with them a couple of years ago tell me the exact same thing via text like 2 days ago. Run it like Washington's power play. That's exactly what he said with Backstrom and the Ovechkin shot.
Yeah, no, and look, I'm not trying to pick on Mark Savard. He's a friend of mine and somebody I really respect a lot. But, I've been in the league 35 years, coaching and broadcasting and being around it. And I know the top power plays and I know the weaker power plays. And the elite power plays always have one guy you can defer to, one guy that takes charge and calms everybody. I don't think they have that guy yet in Toronto, even though there's a plethora of guys, Nick and Jay, that could be like that. There's a ton of guys that could be like that.
And that could be the problem. Too many sergeants, not enough soldiers, And, if you look at the team as a whole, aside from that power play, which is a massive part of their woes, they seem to be playing inconsistent hockey. When it's good, it's good. And when it's not, it's not. Do you attribute that just to the growing pains of getting used to Craig Berube and maybe a different type of system and accountability level?
Yeah, you've been through that, so I'd say you're onto something there. But here's something that would be, if I had the coaching staff, I'd be looking at it, and I'd say, we've played St. Louis twice. We've been outscored by St. Louis 9-3 in 2 games. We don't have to play against them anymore. What's the one thing in common? The head coach used to be the head coach in St. Louis. He's now the head coach in Toronto. Do they know something about Toronto? Do they know something about the coach? Because here's the one thing. I think they did know something. I think they understood. I watched both those games. And, whether it was a 5-1 game or the 4-2 game, they're familiar with the system. Sometimes you got to deviate. The one thing I would tell you about watching Toronto, and Jay, you were good at this. You were somebody that the coach could rely on late in the game. At the end of a period, you weren't going to let them down defensively. You see the end zone coverage just like I see it. They're fundamental flaws in their end zone coverage right now. And I think it's players not used to playing the way, Coach Berube wants them to play.
There's a lot of questions, certainly, with this team. I do subscribe to the whole growing pains conversation. I think it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be a process, certainly, with this team under Craig Berube. But there's a couple guys, Pierre, I feel don't really fit. Timothy Liljegren was one of them. He's now with San Jose. Another is Nick Robertson. What's your read on Robertson long-term with the Leafs?
I don't know if there's a read for him right now, Nick, to be honest with you. Now, I watch him play just like everybody else. He scoots around real fast. It looks like he's explosive with the puck on his stick. It looks like he make the players around him better. But the numbers don't say that. The eye test says it is. The numbers say it's not. I don't know what the long term is for him. I know that when Craig had success in St. Louis, smaller guys didn't play a lot. It was ground and pound. It was, mean, get it deep, dominate board play, dominate slot play. Don't let them get to the net. Here's the one thing that stood out about Berube's teams in St. Louis that won, and I did every single game they played the year they won the Cup in 2019. It was almost impossible to get to the net for a second chance opportunity if you were the other team. It was almost impossible. You can't say that about this Leafs team. Whether it's the forwards helping the defense, whether it's defense not being big enough, you can't say that about this Toronto Maple Leafs team. And we talked about it the last time I was on with you guys. Stolarz was a huge steal for them. Huge steal. That was a massive move by the pro scouting staff and Brad Treliving. If they don't have Stolarz, I don't know what their record would be right now.
Yeah, we were talking about that last game. It would be uglier. That is for sure. On a positive side, the history of this team and their shortfallings has been the look and the depth of their defense. They've addressed that, and it's working out fantastically so far. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Tanev looking great. What's your take on Jani Hakanpää? If he gets healthy, which is supposed to be soon, can he make a big difference and really make this defensive core a force in the league?
If they play a matchup game, I think he can, especially in the penalty kill, where I think he'll be a force. He'll take some of those minutes away from Tanev, maybe. Tanev's been great, by the way, Jay. You're spot on with that. And Ekman-Larsson's playing as well or better than he's ever played in the league. He really is. He's doing – and you know what he's showing, Jay, and I know you'd appreciate this. There's a little bite in his game now that I don't think was really apparent in Arizona, was definitely not apparent in Vancouver. And I think you might have learned some of that being down in Florida on a winning team. So I think you're spot on with that. I do. But Hakanpää can't help. I think it's a great point. It's a valuable point.
I like that you brought that up with OEL. Is that just Paul Maurice doing his thing again?
Paul doesn't get enough. I know he's a Stanley Cup winner now. Doesn't get enough credit, Nick. And he's been such a good coach for a long time. One of the things that I think makes Paul a really good coach, he's changed with the times. When he was a younger coach, he probably thought he had to kick some butt. I know I went through that too. You kind of want to show people you're large and in charge. And I think as he's grown up as a coach, he's realized how to communicate and really develop relationships with his players that are so important if you're going to coach in the league today.
Pierre, what do you see in the future for this team based on what you've seen so far this season?
See, I'm bullish on Toronto. I think Toronto's got a legitimate chance to win the Stanley Cup. I do think there's growing pains that are going to have to happen, though, Jay. And I think they've got some ammunition now in terms of depth of young prospects and players, whether it's Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton, Marshall Rafai down in the American Hockey League, Nick Abruzzese in the American Hockey League, Alex Nylander. I mean, I can go down the line. They got prospects now. I think they're going to wait and see what they're going to do just before the trade deadline. I don't think the roster you see now, Jay, I don't think that's going to be the roster that's going to go into the playoffs for Toronto. But I do think there's a team that's legitimately capable of being a Stanley Cup contender. And it's the first time I've said that in a long time.
Yeah, that's tough. We have more and more guests actually coming on this podcast saying that. And I think it's more so the brand, the style they're playing that is more conducive to finding success, I think, in our opinions, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Your crystal ball, obviously, a couple months away, leading down the path. Like, what do you think are some positions of needs for this team leading up to the deadline in a couple months?
Supplemental offense, what are they going to do with Bobby McMahon? I think he's a really key component of playoff style series because he can bump and grind big. He skates. He can play defense. I've known his game for a long time, even before he got to Colgate University. So he's one of those guys. If they think he can be that guy, then I don't think they address that. But if they don't, I think that maybe they go out and address supplemental offense. I still think they can be a little harder down the middle. I really do, and I think that's something they're going to look at. And one more defenseman that would be a top-end puck mover, I think that would be great. If they could get a top-end puck mover on the back end, that'd be really good.
Well, Pierre, we'll see what happens starting tonight against the Boston Bruins. Really appreciate your time. We'll talk soon, buddy. Thank you so much.
Oh, Nick, my pleasure. Jay, great visiting you. Take care, gentlemen.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.